Okay, calm down.
And how would you describe what just happened in France?
France is a different country from the United States, and it always has been. And it's different in ways, good and bad. It's not all one way or the other. But one of the things they have, which I admire, I'm no neutral here, is their people take democracy seriously. In other words, it isn't about once a year going into a little booth and moving a lever this way or that. It includes that, but it's way more than that. It means that if the government you live with is doing something you really oppose, you are obligated. You feel it. No one comes and puts a gun at your head. You feel it as an obligation to get out in the street with other people who agree with you and make it clear to the population as a whole that you're not neutral about this. You feel very strongly. And you'll find if people who have a different point of view want to come out and do the same, more power to them. That's not our problem. We want it to be clear. And if there's 10,000 of us and 300 of the other, everyone should think about what that means. And so they had the yellow vest movement, very powerful just before the pandemic hit. And then as soon as the pandemic went down, the government tried. Mr. Macron, by the way, whose popularity now is barely above single digits. The man is hated on a scale that, Mr. Biden doesn't have to worry about that. He has to worry, but not Mr. Macron. I mean, he's right up there with Mr. Sunak in Britain. I mean, nobody wants these people. But he tried to push through the following. Like our Congress with its debt ceiling, the French Congress, controlled by Mr. Macron's party, was unable or unwilling to tax corporations and the rich in France. And therefore, they didn't have the money with which to meet their obligations as a government to the people of France. So the government decided to solve that problem, not by borrowing more, because of all the problems I mentioned earlier about that, but by instead whacking the average person. Here's what they did. We're going to take away 2 years of your retirement. You're not going to be able to retire at age 62, which was the law. Compare that to the US, which was the law in France. We're going to deny you that. You're going to have to wait 2 years until you're 64. During those 2 years, not only will you not be able to retire, and we're not going to give you a nickel of your retirement benefit, but you're going to have to continue working, putting money into the retirement system that's withheld from everybody's weekly check. This is an assault on the working class. It deprives people who've been putting money into their retirement account for 50 years of their ability. They may have bought a home. They may have decided to move with their children, or 100 decisions made on a promise that they would have said, no, that's how we're going to balance the budget. Are we going to tax corporations? Not at all. Are we going to tax the rich? Not at all. We're going to tax you by taking away 2 years of your pension. Guess what? To no one's surprise, the French working class took a long time, maybe, 50 seconds, to figure out this is an assault on us. What are you doing? You promised to tax corporations and the rich. Not only did you not do it, but you're coming after us. The polls indicate 70 to 75% for the 13 weeks that this has been going on. Support for the people fighting the pension. Millions, repeatedly, across France, in cities large and small, have been in the streets. This is a war between the government and the mass of people. It has been so polarizing that the normally split labor union movement The French have a national union. They don't just have one AFL-CIO, they have several. And they normally fight each other a lot. They've all come together. They're all united with the mass of the people against the government. And it is not, the government couldn't even get its own party to vote for this change in the pension law. They had to use an obscure clause in their constitution to allow Mr. Macron to get the law passed without a vote, thereby demonstrating the deep commitment to democracy that people like Macron have, namely none. The real commitment to democracy are the masses of those people. I'm jealous, to be honest with you. I'm envious. I think many things would have been very different here in the United States and would be today if the people who feel strongly about a lot of issues were able to do what the French do. Poll after poll in America says we want much less inequality than we have. We don't want the Elon Musks and the Jeffrey Bezoses to be amusing themselves with hundreds of billions of dollars of space flights and other jokes that they can have while we live paycheck to paycheck for half our people who can't give their kid a break for educational support to find out what the little boy or girl has in her or his mind as a passion that they could develop and be contributing to our society. We're shooting ourselves in the foot with this inequality, and the majority of people know it and believe it and say so. If they got into the streets, we would have an altogether different Congress, an altogether different set of laws. If we could do what the French do, we would see a difference. As in, for example, that they retire at age 62, not as we do here now at age 66 and 7, if you look at how the arithmetic of it all works. And they get a much better pension. And I won't go into it, but I like to when I teach my classes. It's the law in France, won by the same democratic process. Once you get a job, once you finish high school or college, and you go into the labor force, your employer must give you 5 weeks paid vacation. Not an option, not something your union has to fight for. It's the law. And if your employer doesn't give it to you, you report it, and your employer is in trouble. They have a national health system. You are covered for any illness, any injury from the day you're born till the day you die. It doesn't matter whether you're working for an employer or unemployed. You get that as a citizen's right, like you have the right to go into a public park or to drink from a public water fountain. You get these things. And I could go on. But Americans who love to tell themselves in denial, the greatest country to get, it's not. It hasn't been for a while. It could be. We have the resources, but we would have to be active politically in a way we're not yet able to be. And I, for one, I'm sad about that. I was born in the United States. I've lived and worked here all my life. I know the country. I'm glad I'm here, but I'm not going to pretend that what's happening isn't happening. I don't think I'm doing anyone a favor if I go in that direction.
Well, thank you so much. As always, this has been very enlightening.
I'm very glad you have programs like this and that you're courageous enough to explore these ideas. I really do. I think it's an enormous public and social service.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.